Well, welcome back to Two Pastors and a Mic. My name is Shannick.
And I'm Corey.
And we're so thankful that you're joining us wherever you're listening or watching from. We want you to know that we appreciate you for just being with us on this journey. Also, if you haven't already, like, share, subscribe. And would you please just jump on Apple Podcast and leave a review. Even if you watch on YouTube or maybe GAN, go ahead and jump on Apple Podcasts, leave a review. It helps us when you rate us, leave a review. The more reviews we get, the more listeners we get, and we would appreciate you helping us out with that.
Yeah, do it for sure. And this is the month of July. We are pre-recording this because you and I are gone. You're in Africa or just got back from Africa. We're all over the place.
Guatemala.
If you haven't bought Shannick's book, you need to pause this video or audio podcast. Go get it. He released it the last week of June 25th. It is available. We've already heard tons of great feedback. Thank you so much for supporting your boy, but make sure you do it. He puts himself out there. It's amazing. And so what we actually wanted to do for this podcast, which you're going to see this same intro for the whole month of July. Again, we told you we're pre-recording it, but we had Shane Willard with us last month. You saw the interview back in June. He was actually here for Bishop Jamie's conference, CIM Networks conference that we hosted here at Hill City, and he preached 5 times. And we were talking behind the scenes with the team. It was just a type of conference unlike any others in just his style, his approach, his message, that we thought it would be important, as a lot of our listeners are traveling through the month of July, is to upload some of these sermons for you to listen to, because we talked about possibly taking a whole month off. But instead of doing that, we said, why don't we just introduce our audience to Shane Willard and bless you through these sermons. So they're going to be a little bit longer. They're more sermon style, but we really wanted you to hear the message from this guy, because you hear it from us so much. It might be so familiar. When you hear it from a different voice and someone who is as good as a communicator as him, I think it will really challenge you.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure that we put those messages out was because not only was the content so good, not only did you just have an opportunity to think and to renew your mind in so many ways, but he brought about just this practical side to end every message that you could actually walk away with something. So we wanted to share that with you the entire month. And so just enjoy these episodes, enjoy these messages, and we know you'll be blessed.
Thank you for letting me be with you for the last couple days. In all authenticity, you've done more for me than I've done for you. It's been a real honor. I find you one of some of the most refreshing people I've been around in a long time. And I wouldn't just say that. I wouldn't say anything negative. I wouldn't get over and go, well, you kind of suck. But I certainly wouldn't lie about the positive of it. And so thank you so much. A couple things before we get going. After this is over, we do have our resource table set up. If you want to resource yourself well, there's some really good stuff out there. And it also helps us take care of the poor. We have 3 children's homes in China that look after children with disabilities, 2 in Hinyang, 1 in Changsha. And so for 10 minutes after this is over, I'll be standing out there. After about 10 minutes or so, I'm going to go eat, right? And so if you could come in the first 10 minutes, that would be amazing. Let me put something in your hands that will change the way you look at God. And so doing, you put something in our hands that helps us feed, clothe, shelter, educate children with disabilities. We also get to pay for some surgeries. It's really a cool thing to be a part of. And there's a couple things out there. Like I don't know if I talked about this. My master's degree is in clinical psychology. So I have a master's degree in the area of sexuality, which it sounds like I'm making a joke. I'm not. It's like I'm a theoretical expert. In theory I'm the best. In practice, pretty much crap. But in theory. Well, so the church in Australia asked me to handle a lot of this sexuality stuff. And so there's an 11-part series out there on it. There's nothing in there about actual sex. Somebody already picked it up and said, how do you talk for 11 sessions on this? I'm like, well, it's not a technique manual. That would be 4 minutes long. It's actually it's a thing about how to think about that topic, in a more reasonable way. If you want a further sort of version of what we did this morning, there's a 6-hour short course on how to approach the Bible better, and it's out there. And so just come by and we'll do that up. The other thing is 7 of you have inquired with me about, hey, how can we get you to come by our place? And I really appreciate that. Now when I schedule, we're scheduling a year and a half in advance. there's not, particularly a weekend, there's not an opening till December 2026. And so, but the only way to get that on is to do it. So they're gonna pop an email up behind me here. This is Robin. Robin Taylor is my global administrator, and we had to streamline it because I might have double booked a few things. And so it's not a big, like, if you just write her and say, my name is this is the city I'm in, because that lets us know where the block goes, because I try to scale my travel to where it's not burdensome to any one person. And so you can, this is who I am, this is where I am. And I met him at the CIM conference, and we'd like to see about what it would look like to get on the schedule. And then she'll reach back. She's really good at responding. She'll respond back. The only thing I would ask is that you be good responding back to her. And then we'll see what we can do about organizing that. Okay, so I get to open the Bible tonight. And I love that. And so anytime we do that, we want Jesus to get bigger, the cross to work better, the resurrection to be central, scriptures to get bigger, not smaller. So last night we talked about digging deeper wells instead of building higher fences, and what that looked like. Instead of who is worthy, who is thirsty, instead of sinning less, we're gonna love more. Instead of everything has to be fixed, we're talking about nothing has to be hidden. Instead of focusing on distance, we're gonna focus on direction. And this and that. This morning we talked about historical arc and that way of approaching the Bible. Tonight is gonna be half the sermon is a Bible sermon, and the other half is a psychology lesson around that. So we're gonna ask two questions. One, what happened? And two, more importantly, what's happening in me because of what happened? There's gonna be about 8 minutes in this that the Bible nerds are gonna love. If you're a Bible nerd, you're gonna love it. If you're not a Bible nerd, you're gonna endure it. But 8 minutes, okay? It's not that big of a deal. So this is Philippians chapter 2. This is the Apostle Paul. He's writing from jail, and he's talking about how to be Jesus people in our world. Here's what he says: do all things without grumbling or disputing. Well, let's just stop right there. How are we doing with that? Are Christians worldwide known for their resistance to complaining and their resistance to arguing? I don't know. I can read Greek too, and the word all there is actually all. But Shane, they're wrong. Okay. A dispute by definition, what we need more of is curious conversations between two people without their flag in the ground. What we need less of, a dispute by definition is a conversation between two people where one has already put a flag in the ground, right? Like, I'm 49, I'm at least of average intelligence. I have never in my life been able to shift someone if they started with their conclusion. And so when we let the world in on this kind of stuff, it's like, it just tastes funny. Paul's talking, this is a fledgling movement that was called People of the Way, and then eventually got called Christianity. And you got to show something. You like I don't want to speak down to you, but I don't want to assume you might know something you don't know. Christianity was not a public religion. It wasn't allowed. It was a private society, and somehow that private society had to distinguish itself from the rest of the world by how it was living. It was called apologetics or apologies. Apologies were living different, and this is why we're living different. It wasn't a defense of what we believed. It was a defense of how we were living. And Paul's pointing out, like, wait a minute, like this is, if you want to really do it, you got to do all things without grumbling or disputing. And let me, look, the world in Paul's day was crazy. He was like, oh, you believe how bad this world is? I'm with you. God is not done repairing the world, but it's certainly better than when Paul was walking the earth, and it's not even close. And it's because of the work of the Spirit of Christ in the world. That should be, like, do all things without grumbling or disputing. Could you imagine living in first century Philippi? We'll talk about that in a second. All things without grumbling, so that you may be blameless and innocent children of God. Isn't it interesting that both Paul and Jesus tie whether the world will see us as children of God to our basic disposition in conflict? Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers. They're the children of God. 36 verses later, he said, don't just love your friends, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you so that you may be children of your Father in heaven. Twice in the same sermon, he ties our basic disposition and conflict to whether the world will see God in us or not. Paul's doing the same thing here. Children of God, without blemish in the midst of a crooked and twisted generation, amongst whom you shine like stars or lights in the world, holding fast to the word of life, so in the day of Christ I may be proud that I did not run in vain or labor in vain. In other words, I'm in jail, I'm fixing to die, and I'd like to know I didn't waste my life. And one of the ways I'm gonna know I didn't waste my life is if you guys will make a commitment to do all things without grumbling or disputing. Now, I have about an 8-minute talk that the Bible nerds are gonna love that will make this passage come to life. So next slide. So this is a 5-part rapid fire history lesson that will allow this passage to come to life. We're gonna talk about the Battle of Philippi. We're gonna talk about Paul in Jerusalem with the Zealots. We're gonna talk about a guy called the Egyptian. We're gonna talk about a false accusation and then a true confession. You're gonna have to pay very close attention because I'm gonna talk kind of fast, but this will make this passage come alive. First of all, the Battle of Philippi. Paul is writing this to a place called Philippi, and the Battle of Philippi was critical to understanding Philippi. In the 40s BC, there was a guy named Julius Caesar. He ruled basically the whole world. People thought he was God, and he invented the salad. Amazing. He got killed by being stabbed in the back by his best friend, a guy named Brutus. This kind of hurt his God claims. The idea was if you were actually God, you should have seen that coming, right? And so all this stuff, this instigated a civil war between Caesar Augustus, his adopted nephew, and Brutus and the people loyal to him. And that civil war culminated in a battle, and you guessed it, Philippi. And Caesar Augustus squashed the resistance, and he awarded the military who was loyal to him with land grants in Philippi and honorary first-class Roman citizenship, which guaranteed them a living wage based on the excessive taxation of everybody else, and that living wage was called the dole. So every Friday you would go pick up your dole payment, and to pick up your dole payment, you had to make one confession: Caesar is Lord. Does this make more sense now why Paul wrote to Romans, if you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart Jesus is Lord, you will be saved? I was taught my whole life that was Paul's one formula on how to go to heaven. How dumb is that? If that was Paul's formula on how to go to heaven, he forgot to tell Philippi, he forgot to tell Thessalonica, he forgot to tell Galatia, he never mentioned it to Timothy or Titus or Philemon or any of them. That was his one way to go to heaven, and he just forgot to tell everybody else. Well, when you write something to Rome where the first-class people are guaranteed a living wage based on the excessive taxation of everybody else, but to pick up that living wage called the dole, you had to confess Caesar is Lord. Paul is doing an in-your-face confrontation to a fundamental way of seeing the world. He says, if you will confess Jesus is Lord, I know it could cost you your livelihood. It might even cost you your life, but the faithfulness of Christ is not compromised by your lack of faithfulness, and you can trust God to save you out of that situation. It was in your face kind of stuff. So if you lived in Philippi and you weren't loyal to Caesar, how bad would that have been? Philippi's the one place that in Paul's epistles, he says he was shamefully treated and in much conflict. Why? Because if people aren't willing to say Caesar's Lord, it could cost them their livelihood. It could cost them their land, their homes. And so you have that going on. Point number 2, Paul in Jerusalem with zealots. So Paul, so there was this group of people called the Zealots in Jerusalem, and Paul was irritating them theologically. Here's what he was doing. He was refusing to treat the scripture statically. He's trying to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ to the world, and he's like, I know it says don't eat bacon, but we're not gonna let your food choice stand in the way of Jesus being the Lord of your life. We're not gonna do that. We're not gonna make 30-year-olds get circumcised. That's just ridiculous. We're not gonna tell 30-year-olds they have to go through a surgical procedure to be a part of the church of Jesus Christ. That's just ridiculous. Well, that message took off. And let's be honest, thank God, or the church would have died pretty quickly. If you tell 30-year-old men they have to be circumcised to be a part of the church, it's gonna fail, right? We welcome you here, but we have a small guillotine back there that you can, engage in some small surgical procedure. Well, the Zealots, the Zealots get irritated by this, and they call Paul to Jerusalem, and they want him to give an answer to his teaching. And they're like, look, bro, We celebrate anybody coming to Christ, that's fine. But around here, man, there's a rumor going around that you're saying the temple doesn't matter, and the people don't matter, and the land doesn't matter, and circumcision doesn't matter, and that's not okay. You're rallying people up around here, man. And Paul's like, what can I do to make it right? And they say, you need to go through a temple cleansing. This is all in Acts 21, by the way. So he goes through this temple cleansing, and 7 days later, because he brought a Greek named Epaphras to be a part of this thing, the zealots beat him to the point where he could not walk. And so when they saw the mob beating Paul, they called the police, who happened to be the Roman soldiers. And the Roman soldiers show up, and instead of arresting the people beating the guy, they arrest the guy being beaten, which leads to this question, why? Which leads me to the Egyptian. Now, there was 24 different messianic figures in a 120-year period of time. There was Menahem, Simon ben Gora, Simon bar Kokhba. There was all these guys claiming to be the one anointed by God to set up the kingdom by kicking out the oppressors. And they all met the same fate. When Rome caught them, they died. But this guy was smarter. Everybody was dying. And he came around, 20 years or so after Jesus, right? And he was simply called the Egyptian. And what he did is he led a clandestine resistance movement of 4,000 secret assassins called the Sicarii, the throat cutters. And essentially, they fit in during the day, but at night they'd come out dressed in all black and they would cut the throats of corrupt high priests or government officials or Roman sympathizers, and they would just leave them with their little mark. And so the next morning when the light came up, they would find dead people that were been assassinated by the Sicarii. And since there was no such thing as CSI Jerusalem, people would just go, oh, well, the Egyptian did this. Well, the Egyptian was wreaking havoc on the Roman occupation. So here's what they did. The Jews could not get Paul out of their hair because they would have rather been biblical than Christ-like. We don't know anybody like that. And what they did is they put someone's life on the line. The way to get Paul out of their hair was they lured him into Jerusalem, and then they tipped off the Romans that he's the Egyptian that they've been looking for. And this thing culminates in Acts 21, and they arrest Paul. How do we know this? Here's Acts 21. The head centurion, chief of police, asked Paul a weird question. Here's what he asked him. Are you not the Egyptian then who recently stirred up a revolt and led the 4,000 men of assassins out into the wilderness? Acts 21:38. Imagine being accused of something like that. If you read the whole passage, they're like, you're not the Egyptian? Paul's like, no. And I know where this is going. You're fixing to crucify me without a trial, but you can't because I'm a Roman citizen. I get a real trial, bro. And so they sent him to a governor named Felix. Felix says, quote, I find no reason to charge this man. But as a favor to the Jews in Jerusalem, he kept him in jail for 2 years. That's a long time. Felix gets replaced by a guy named Festus. Highly, highly unfortunate name. Festus is like, why is this guy in here? And then Paul appeals to his highest privilege, which is a trial before Caesar. So the book of Acts ends with Paul underneath house arrest in Rome, which is where he ends up in prison, writing the book of Philippians. Why? Because of a false accusation by the Jews and a true confession. The false accusation was that he was a Messiah figure stirring up a revolt. The true confession was he would not come off the idea that Jesus was Lord instead of Caesar. And if he doesn't come off that idea, he's gonna die. Nero is gonna kill him, probably by crucifixion, maybe by impaling, but this is gonna end very poorly. And once we know that, and you go read Philippians, that's the letter, one of the letters he wrote from prison, knowing it was his last words. Paul becomes one of the most inspiring people you can possibly imagine. I don't wanna say things that seem like, but this is obvious. Paul died having never known that what he gave his life to would take off. And even with that, waiting in jail to be executed, he's like, for me to live is Christ, to die that is gain. Pray for me that I'll in no way be ashamed, that whatever they're gonna do to me, Christ will be honored in my body. For I know that all things are possible. It's in that context that he says, do all things without grumbling or disputing. 4 verses before that, he says, I'm in here, you're out there, but we're in the same struggle. Why? Because they're trying to follow Christ in a place as mad as Philippi. This is a massive, massive story. A couple more thoughts for the Bible nerds. In Jewish hermeneutics, there's something called a remez. A remez is a hint or an allusion to something else. And this passage is full of remezes. 40 seconds for the remezes. Next slide. Grumbling is a reference to Exodus 16. Blameless and pure is a reference to Genesis 17. Warped and crooked generation is a reference to Deuteronomy 32. That's when Moses says, you're no longer children of God. You're a warped and crooked generation. Shine like stars is a reference to Daniel 12. And run in vain is a reference to Isaiah 65. Now, if you got lost in any of that, come back now, and I'll summarize the entire first 13 minutes of this talk in one slide. Next slide. Essentially, Paul is saying, don't be like the freed Israelites and grumble. There's a better way to live. You can shine like stars. Here is the entire book of Exodus in 10 seconds. Ready? Here we go. There was a group of people that didn't earn it and didn't deserve it, but despite them not earning it or deserving it, God reached out and saved their life by moving them from slavery into freedom. And despite everything that God did, that same group of people ended up grumbling about things less important than that. I find it unreal that out of all the things that Paul could have said, don't be like the Israelites in, he chose their grumbling. Not their adulteries, not their idolatries, no, just stop flipping complaining. Let's say this a few different ways. Next slide. How do we shine like stars? Well, don't grumble. I love words. And the Greek word for grumble, this is such a great word, is gongismon. Gongismon. It's a gong. Literally, like most words have a literal meaning, but they also have a symbolic thing. It's literally foolish reasoning or reasoning with malicious desire, but it's also a musical metaphor. It's a gong. I traveled the world, spoke in stadiums, and I'm just telling you, the musicians up here belong in any stage, in any stadium on the earth, okay? However, you can have people as talented as Brittany and the rest of this team, and it doesn't matter if the drummer sucks, right? If you've been in church long enough you ever seen a situation where you have a great singer, a great guitar player, but the drummer's just a little off, you know? And it's painful. It's like, even if they're a 16th of a beat off, it's like, you know, there's this awkward, everybody's like, and if somebody's doing that, it butchers the song. Here's what grumbling does. Grumbling is like everybody's a part of this song, and the drummer just chooses to just indiscriminately start hitting the cymbal as hard as he can off beat. He's butchering the song. It's like, Paul's like, when you're grumbling, it's like this. It's like there's a song being played, that CIM network is a certain song. And then in your own hometowns, your church is like a song. And we have a choice. We can be a part of that song, or we can lose the plot and make as much noise with our mouth as humanly possible. We can choose to be a part of the song, or we can choose to be a gong. It's our choice. And he's like, hey, don't do that. Don't be that clanging cymbal. If you can't find your part in the song, sit it out. Sit it out. Don't just ruin everybody else's song by hitting the cymbal as hard as you can. That's grumbling. Let's put some more language on this. Next slide. Grumbling chooses rants over relationship. This is part of what's happened is according to the historian Thomas Creeder, he says that the main symbol of the church in the first 327 years was a table. The table was the technology where everybody could be accepted without having to be affirmed for everything they're thinking. And so it created space for Republicans and Democrats to eat together. It created space for people with this position or that position. I fully accept you without having to affirm all your thoughts about everything. That was the table. By the way, just a quick little Bible nerddom here. The word table in Hebrew is shulchan. The word reconcile in Hebrew is shulchan. It's the same word without one letter difference. So in the Bible, when the word shulchan is there, translators have to decide, is this a literal table, or metaphorically, is this two people reconciling? It is brilliant. But what we did is we traded a table for a tablet. And a tablet allows us to rant without any commitment to a relationship. It says, the algorithm says you have to agree with everything before we can do life together. Like it chooses, grumbling chooses, a gong chooses a rant over relationship. It chooses pity over party. It chooses pathetic over perspective. A lack of perspective is the enemy of hope. You don't judge success on a plotted point, you judge success on a trajectory line. Like let me give you, if I was to say, hey, let me tell you about my financial situation. I'm worth $1 million and I have zero debt. Would I be winning or would I be losing? Well, you can't really know. That was a setup. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm so glad because you're with it, right? You're in it. You can't really know because all I do is give you a plotted point. What if the whole story is I inherited 100 million from my rich uncle and I'm an idiot and I'm down to my last million? Well, then I'd be losing. But what if I started with nothing, but I just crossed into millionaire status? Well, now I'd be winning. So two different people can be at the exact same plotted point and one be winning and one be losing because you don't judge success on a plotted point, you judge success on the trajectory line. And is God done fixing the world? No, but it's certainly better. The trajectory's going the right way. Let's say it this way. Next slide. Grumblers complain about darkness. Leaders turn on the light. It's two different things. The same guy, Paul, wrote to Corinthians. He says, what business is it of yours, the immorality of the world? Get your own house in order first. Paul's pointing something out that's obvious. You'll never change the world sitting on the internet complaining about all the things we deem immoral. It doesn't, either show a better way to live or don't. But don't, that does it, that's gong, gong, gong. It's that, it's maybe we could say it this way, one last way, next slide. As a leader, be a part of the song and never a gong. And look, everything I've said so far in 21 minutes has been obvious. Like, okay, think about it. The people who inspire you the most are not the ones pointing out everything that's wrong, right? The people who inspire you the most are not the ones who, out of 100 things going good, they're gonna tell you about the one thing not so good. Like the people, and if they inspire you, the people who inspire you the most are not the ones who never go through anything. I mean, imagine if I said, hey, I brought a friend with me tonight. His name's Bill. Bill, come on up. I want you to hear Bill's story. So Bill comes up and says, Bill, tell me your story. Bill's like, hi, everybody. My name's Bill. Let me tell you about my life. It's awesome. My marriage is awesome. My children are awesome. My business is booming. And when I think about my past, I gotta be honest, I pretty much nailed that too. Like, we don't wanna know Bill. I don't wanna know him. The people who inspire us the most are not the ones who never go through anything. It's the ones who go through things with a profound trust. They're not the ones with this magic amount of faith not to handle anything. Well, if that's obvious, then how come is it that we tend to default to grumbling? I'm gonna step into a bit of psychology here and put some language that hopefully helps us. I think we grumble for 6 reasons. Next slide. Number 1, I think we grumble when we forget to remember. A lack of perspective is the enemy of hope. This is a neurological phenomenon. Negative experiences stick to our brain faster than positive experiences. Actually, much faster. That's why I think, this is my theory, I think that's why in the scriptures, anytime something positive happened, the command was remember. Remember, hey, build an altar. Create some sort of ritual so you remember this. Hey, this is a positive thing because human beings have to remember positive things intentionally, but we don't have to try to remember negative things. And when we forget to remember the positive things, we lose perspective. Like when I hear Christians are like, oh man, you believe how bad this world is. Like, what? Okay, look, here's a couple things that were legal in Jesus's day. These things were legal. Ready? Here we go. Murder, legal, as long as they were lower class than you. Rape, legal, as long as they were lower class than you. Pedophilia was legal, as long as they were lower class than you. Bestiality was a normal part of public temple worship across the empire. Hey, strapping someone to a post in the middle of town and beating them to death with whips, that was legal. Nailing people to trees and waiting for them to suffocate, it was called crucifixion. That was legal. Kidnapping underclass people from neighboring communities and forcing them to entertain upper class people in arenas where wild animals would tear them apart. That was legal. If you haven't seen Gladiator 2, go check it out. Denzel was awesome, right? People say, oh man, you believe how bad, look, whatever your problem is with Trump or Biden or Kamala Harris, whoever, whatever your problem is with Gretchen Whitmer or whoever, they're not Nero, right? This is the perspective, like nothing is worse. Nothing is worse than Jesus's day. Nothing. Heck, nothing's worse than 100 years ago. Go home tonight and watch one episode of 1883 and ask, would you want to live back then? Nothing's worse except pollution. Pollution's worse. Spam is worse. It is. Yeah, but pollution's worse because we invented the internal combustion engine, which basically solved world hunger, made farming a lot easier. It created another problem. To be fair, divorces are worse. We're getting more divorces now than ever before. That's not good, depending on your perspective. That's not good. But that's just because of medical technology. We're living so long. In Jesus's day, they died at 32. So till death do us part was more doable. Now you gotta be more careful, you know? Like seriously. You imagine your great-great-grandfather coming back from the dead and your job was you have 3 days to convince him how much worse the world is than what he lived in? Are you serious? Is God done redeeming the world? No. But you don't seem convinced. Okay, no tricks. Would you rather be a woman today or 1950? That's not close. Or 1850 or 1550. Oof. Is God done redeeming women's rights? No, but it's certainly better. In big corporations, they have HR departments. When my mom started working, the boss could harass you and you had no one to call. It's just better. Would you rather be a person of color today or 1950 or 1850? Is God done redeeming race relations and the image of God in all people? Not even close, but certainly better. Would you rather go to the dentist today or 1950? Or 1850 or 1550? Today they numb your mouth with Novocaine. In 1850 they numbed it with whiskey. I've had both. Novocaine is better. Would you rather have a colonoscopy today or 1950? Today they just put you to sleep. You don't even know it. It's awesome actually. 1950 they were like, oh. All right, buddy, just breathe through it, breathe through it. Breathe, I know it hurts. Imagine if your great-great-grandfather came back from the dead, just the things in your house. What's that? It's a car. What's that do? It takes us everywhere we want to go at 70 miles an hour on paved roads. What? Wow, what's that? It's a fridge. What's that do? Keeps things cool. Food spoils far less frequently. It's amazing. It's amazing. What's that? It's toilet paper. It's amazing, Granddad. It's amazing. We saw you collecting corn cobs earlier. Not necessary. 1931 was a banner year. You know. What's that? That's the wet wipes. What's that do? That's the thing that shows us the toilet paper's not as foolproof as we thought. That's amazing too. And even that's getting better. Like in Japan, they were having trouble with too much toilet paper in their sewers, you know? So instead of complaining about it, they got inventive, and they invented toilet paper-free toilets. I know, ladies in the back, God, that's because what you're picturing is one of those French bidet things, you know, that goes, no. In Japan, their toilets have an 80 horsepower Kubota engine attached to it. You better be sure you're done in Japan, because when you're done and you hit that button, oh my Lord, I'm talking. It will lift you off the seat. You can't wait to go to the toilet in Japan. You go to the bathroom in Japan and come back and use the toilet in Floyd's Knobs. I'm telling you, you think you're in Sudan or something. Is God done? No, it's certainly better though. I've never been to any of your houses except Jamie's. It's a nice house, you know, basic and nice. But I had a chance to go to the King of Wales's home from 1350. Trust me, it's better. Everybody's house in here is better. We just lose perspective and we forget to remember. Like the good old day. You know, the same grandparents that told you, my day, it was so bad. You can't now go the other way. Like our health is a gift. Like, okay, if you didn't wake up with a chemotherapy appointment today, it's a good day. Do you have working kidneys? It's a good day. We forget these things. We forget to remember. Our homes, our medicine. People go, oh, big pharma. You want to live without big pharma? Remember life without that? Remember life without, antibiotics, where people died of strep throat and scratches in their front yard? Are you serious? Or what about water and power? Or the ability to read? 12% of people could read in 1820. Now less than 10% of people can't. Why? Because God is at work fixing this world. He's doing a really good job. And the people who should be championing that message can't be the ones grumbling. We grumble when we forget to remember. There's an old rabbi parable. It's a made-up story. It's fiction, but it has a good point. And they asked the rabbi, they said, tell us about grumbling. He says, grumbling is like when the children of Israel were coming through the Red Sea and the waters were parted on both sides and they were crossing on dry land. There was one slave that got a piece of mud stuck between his toes. He couldn't shake it. He couldn't clear the mud from between his toes. And he said to his friend, he said, I got a piece of mud between my toes. And the parable goes that they both got so focused on the one piece of mud that they missed the walls of water being held back for their redemption. That's the nature of grumbling. Let's say it this way, next slide. We grumble when we forget to remember the story's larger. We focus on the mud and miss the water. Or maybe let's say it this way, next slide. We grumble when we think we need more or compare ourselves. When we look right and left instead of in and up to get our value. The problem with looking right and left instead of in and up is we get stuck in the land of bigger, better, fitter, smarter, richer. And the problem with that paradigm is you'll never be est. Until it doesn't matter what the number is. And for every richer, there's a poorer. For every fitter, there's a fatter. For every smarter, there's a dumber. So if we look left, we feel superior. If we look right, we feel inferior. Neither one helps us. And we've all got stuck in this. Let's say it a couple different ways. Next slide. The lie is if I get that, then I'll feel better. In philosophy, it's called the lie of the sacred object. The lie of the sacred object is anytime I believe that an external thing will make me feel better. And even if it's a good thing, it won't. If I could lose this weight. And let me be clear, if you need to lose weight, lose weight. There's a lot of benefits to being at a more ideal weight. There is. Losing weight, if you need to lose weight's great, but if you're not enough without it, you'll never be enough with it. You'll just be a 30-pound lighter version of your discontented self. It just doesn't work that way. Or when I meet that person, I just want to be married. I want to be married. Shane, I want to be married. Shane, pray for me to be married. I just want to be married. I just want to be married. I just want to be married. Pray for me to be married. No, you don't. Look. Follow my logic here, ready? If you're not coping with the stress of being single, you know, people aren't coping with the stress of being married. A single person's prayer tickles me. It goes something like this. Dear blonde hair, blue-eyed, English-speaking Jesus. Shane here, I'm 27, I'm able-bodied, I'm single. Let me tell you about my life. Lord, I get to do what I want to do when I want to do it. I don't have to run it by anybody to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And most importantly, Lord Jesus, no one on earth is spending my money other than me. But despite all these things that I know sounds awesome, I'm still stressed. So would you bless me with one of your beloved daughters in order to make my life harder? Look, a good spouse is a great thing to have. But if you're not enough, now you marry poorly, you'll pray for a comet to come to earth to bring you sweet relief. That's a fact too. A good spouse is a great thing to have, but if you're not enough without them, you'll never be enough with them. There's no such thing as a happy marriage that was forged between two miserable single people. Like we hated our lives, but then we got married and it fixed everything. No. And that's the same with raises or houses or jobs or shirts, cars. If you're not enough without it, you're just not gonna be enough with it. We grumble when we forget to remember. We grumble when we look at the mud and forget the water. We grumble when we look right and left instead of in and up to get our value. Let's say it this way, next one. We grumble when we feel God has shorted us. We start this internal imaginative narrative that God owes us something. Whatever the primary imagination in your heart is, that's the thing that controls the emotion around you. And so we build that thing around us. We grumble when we forget to remember, when we're not intentional about remembering the trajectory. We grumble when we think God owes us. We grumble when we look right and left instead of in and up. We grumble when we focus on the mud and miss the water. Let's say it two more ways. Next slide. We grumble when we judge the future by the present. In psychology, it's called freezing the present. It's the idea where we lose perspective, where we're going through something and we think, we'll never get over this, right? And it's just in us to do that. Like heck, if we get a bad enough cold, we're thinking, I'll never breathe again. That's me done, right? Or here's a good one, heartbreak. Everybody remember your first breakup? Of course you do. It's the negative experience. It sticks to your mind. Everybody remembers their first breakup. I remember mine, and it was mutual. Don't you think anything other than that? We got together and mutually decided it wasn't working, right? The problem was she seemed fine. I was devastated. I started freezing the present. I was like, oh God, I love her so much. I love her so much. I'll never find anybody, ooh, you know? And I was doing the thing that, I was 14, yeah? And I was doing the thing that you do to re-attract women. I was pouting, you know? My dad shows up at school. I get in the car. My dad's like, hey, what's the matter with you? If you ever raised a teenager, you know what I said. What'd I say? I said, nothing. My dad's like, really, nothing? Then tell your face that. I can't see your heart, but I can see your face. And if your face is any indication what's going on in your heart, there's something wrong. So if there's nothing actually wrong, that means your face is broken. So fix your flipping face. We got home. I was still pouting an hour later. Dad had had enough. He came in my room. He said, hey, you gotta tell me or not? I said, Dad, she broke up with me. It was mutual. I hurt so bad. My dad looked at me and he said, boy, are you crying over a girl? I said, yeah, Dad. He said, I'll be right back. He came back with the smallest potted plant. Like I could easily hold it like this, little green sprig sticking out of it. I've always been a pretty good communicator. I could see where this was going. Fresh starts, new life, life coming from death, new life bursting forth out of the ground. You know? Not my dad. My dad was like, if you're gonna cry over a girl, at least cry in the plant so your tears will do something. God, you're embarrassing. And you know he was right. Nate, I need you to. No, he's right. 3 weeks later, new girl, forget, right? Right? We grumble when we freeze the present. We judge the future by where we are right now. And what that does is that puts us into despair, which is the opposite of resurrection. Christians posture their heart through resurrection, which is you never know what God might do today that fundamentally changes your tomorrow. Despair is the belief that my tomorrow is simply a repeat of yesterday. Let's say it one more way, next slide. We grumble when we forget life is a marathon and not a sprint. We tend to overestimate what we can do in a year, but underestimate what we could do with 10 years of discipline. Now, if you're the type that can only listen to the first 3 minutes of a message, and then you tune out, and then when you feel the message winding down, you come back. Now is your time. This is your moment. I've summarized the entire sermon on one slide. Here we go. No grumbling. Shine like stars. So when she asked you on the way to the hotel, what did he talk about? No grumbling. Shine like stars. See, we have all kinds of ways that, how can we be light in our world? And I've seen Christians do it in some pretty jacked up ways. I'm gonna go on the internet and I'm gonna weaponize scripture in the general direction of people who have no emotional connection to it. I'm sharing light. No, you're not. Light is a function of demonstrating a life, not announcing doctrine. No grumbling. Actually, I would just challenge us all to hold all of our weaponizing of scripture, at least until we've mastered that. Now, great sermons aren't meant to be agreed with or disagreed with. They're meant to be wrestled with for application. So let's wrestle with a few questions. Next slide. What does this mean for us? Is shining as simple as not grumbling? Or is shining as simple as keep going? Think about the person who inspires you the most. They're the ones who went through something horrendous with the right disposition, a profound trust instead of a magic amount of faith. Or is shining as simple as knowing we have enough right now? Think about the people who inspire you the most. They're not the ones who are the richest. They're the ones who are the most content. They inspire you. That's why when you take Americans to like third world countries, they always come back with the same story. How are they so happy? They have so little. It's like, it's inspiring, that kind of thing. Or next slide, let's say it this way. Where do we need to repent from grumbling? With no indictment. This isn't about separation or not being forgiven or God being angry. It's about us embracing our best life and showing that best life. Maybe we need to change the way we're thinking about complaining. Or what do we need to remember? Where have we forgot our, like, here's a good question. Where would your life be had God not touched your life? And we lose sight of that, we can lose our perspective. And the lack of perspective is the enemy of hope. Or where have we lost sight of the bigger story?